This is an unfamiliar feeling. I'm used to getting in the car and just freaking, freezing my tail off over these last few months. And not only because the weather has been cold, but if you've ever dieted for real, and by for real I mean like, pretty steep deficit, you're getting into those lower double digit, high single digit body fat kind of levels, you get cold. You get freaking cold, man, And there's this thermogenic effect of even eating food where if you get a full belly, right, you got energy being released from the freaking act of digestion. Not to mention the fact that you're going to burn energy first to even digest the food, because all your stomach doesn't just exist like it's this tube of muscle that's like, constantly flexing and moving things. Like, eating is not a passive act. But all that's to say is, now that I've got some food in my system, even just only bouncing around that 3,000 calorie mark, I'm feeling a lot warmer. I've set my AC a little bit cooler, and yeah, in the car, I feel like a dog. If you left me in here with no AC, it would freaking kill me. But yeah, so plan for today with arms. Really just get them as pumped as possible. And I already just realized that I forgot to bring the measuring tape, but that's okay. That's okay. I can tell visually how they're looking in terms of just overall kind of pumpedness. But even without the visual sensation, you also get the physical kind of feeling, right? So what I'm aiming for, and I still had this when I was dieting if I had an arm pump, but even more so now, is I want to get to the point where at the end of the lift, bis, tris, both fully pumped, that I can't touch my shoulder, that I can't get my middle finger to my rear or to my front delt, no matter how hard I squeeze. That's a good indicator you get so much blood flowed into your arms that you've literally restricted your range of motion. Like, I've had it where especially steeper off season, a bit of a more puffy Sam at like a 265. I've stepped on the scale at 270 before, but really 265 is pretty much my like peak bulk weight that I've ever been at. All the times that I've been on the scale at 270, it was because I had like a really huge meal right before bed, and I was still in the process of like digesting it in the morning when I weighed myself. So that's just, cheating with like extra food weight in my system. But yeah, up at that 265 with a fully pumped set of arms, it gets to the point that even reaching up to like pause my music or like take my headphones out becomes a little bit of a struggle. Like all the videos where, and most of the time they're kind of just pretending, like for hype, but it'll be like a TikTok edit where the guy is struggling to get his shirt off, then he starts posing to the music and everything. That's real. That's a real sensation, depending on the shirt, of course. And if you're, now that I've got so much food in my system too, and these workouts are going to get more intense because I can actually, go nuts and be able to recover from all the food that I'm eating, well, I'm going to start getting freaking sweaty. Like these last these last like 4 or 5 months, I feel like I barely sweat at all during the workouts. For one, because I'm just colder from dieting, and then the workouts are a little bit, not even a little bit, they're just more chill because all I'm trying to do is maintain my size. It's been a while since I've left the gym drenched, and speaking of that, I better get some air conditioning set up before it gets too hot. There was about a month period last year where it was in upper 90s, like consistently. Now, sure, if you're from Texas or something, I guess you might think I sound like a wuss. Like you're used to, mid hundreds when it gets real toasty. But at the time, it felt pretty wild. Not to mention, I was steep into a bulk, so I'm really cooking. I mean, I did a leg day with sweatpants on. Oh, not good. So yeah, I don't want to overheat during these lifts. But yeah, that'll be good. And even just in general right now, it's only the beginning. Things have barely even really changed, but I am rather excited about the rest of the year. Off-season progress, there's a little bit of a post-show mindset change that I go through. And I mean, I've only done it twice now. Once after the Arnold Amateur, and then once now after the Arnold Columbus and the Arnold UK. Because, for the last 6 months, essentially, the only thing I've really been thinking about, like pinpoint goal, was like, all right, keep dieting, stick to my calories, do my cardio, okay, get this routine down. Arnold, And now that it's over, you get this, or at least I have. If you've ever done a show, I'd love to hear how you felt about it. But you get this little, kind of a little bit of an aimlessness, because it's like all this time was spent focusing on just these couple of days. I mean, really, how long was I even on stage for both shows? 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and then it's done. So that's where I'm not it's not like I don't know what I want to do next. It's not like I don't know that an off season is about to get started. But it does take a second to get back into that sort of regular groove. So that's why I really like, and I feel like I just kind of lucked out for me, but I really like the setup of off-season mass gaining phase being coupled with a dieting phase. Just because there's no end. There's always something next. There's always something over the horizon. And this is something I've noticed, and a lot of guys who compete, who I've gotten to talk to now, especially at all these shows and expos and everything, they kind of end up saying the same thing that I've been thinking this for a while. It's kind of a pushing yourself to the limit one way or the other in a bulk or in a dieting phase, because it'll send you on this slingshot kind of loop between the two, So the initial question that I see a lot, all right, should I bulk or should I cut? And then the guy says, all right, I'm 18, I'm this many pounds, I've been lifting for this many years, do I bulk or do I cut? It depends on the situation, right? If you're a skinnier dude, there's probably no need to start with a cut. Usually, I'd say for the most part, first session, you just start working out, usually you don't have to jump straight into a deficit. If anything, you should maximize that initial phase of, you've never been in the gym before, eat enough food to recover, and then you can keep training and adapting and, progressively overload. For the most part, I'd say bulk first. But really, I'd say just hit your protein and start working out hard, because just from doing that as a beginner, you're going to main gain, in quotes, to, just make progress. But once you've plateaued a little bit, which I think is just the nature of things, you've been working out for 2 years, just hitting my protein goals and lifting, I'm not really growing that much anymore. I'm not really getting that much stronger. That's where I think the real decision should be made. Do I bulk up? Do I lock in for a 4-month off season, try to gain, 15 pounds or something? Or do I cut down and see how I'm looking? Right? Either or. But no matter which one you pick, really the only wrong decision is not picking one and then just, killing time, staying plateaued, which sucks. But whichever one you pick, do it all the way. Really stick to it. I'm not saying you got to reach 300 pounds bulked, or you've got to get bone dry, shredded, Bumstead peeled in a dieting phase. But whichever one you pick, give yourself maybe, if it's your first time doing it, maybe don't overwhelm yourself with like a crazy timeline goal. Just say, even 3 months is pretty long. But if you could say, okay, for the next 3 months, I'm going to start eating. I'm going to start watching the scale go up. Now, don't get too soft, of course. A bulk where you get super fat is really just unnecessary. But eat enough to grow with a little bit of fat. That's just part of the deal. And if you really stick to it for those 3 months and you get the results of a bulk, you're bigger, you're stronger, you're softer, but your lifts are going to be crazy because now you're really fully fed, right? It's like you're running on all the cylinders at that point. If you stick to it and then you actually get the end result of the bulk, well, now you should be in a situation where, all right, I'm a little tired of all this food. I'm super strong, but I'm kind of soft. or softer, or a little bit. All right, I want to see what I look like lean. And then now you're excited for the dieting phase because you've put yourself in a position where you actually want to diet. Because now you're saying, all right, I'm bigger, I'm softer, I want to see the muscle that I built. And then the dieting phase should be a little bit easier, at least for the first few weeks, because now you've eaten so much food, or at least, enough food to the point where it might have started to feel like a chore. So if you're kind of sick of eating, I mean, that's the perfect setup for a diet. And then if you diet hard enough, by the end of it, you should have, seen yourself relatively leaner, depending on, how far you take it. You'll probably be sick of dieting at the end of it because it's like, it's just objectively difficult. Like, it's not super easy. And then that's kind of my situation right now. I've had my fill of being lean. Now I want to put some size on, so it's kind of constantly just going back and forth between those two states. And in the process, over time, you'll gradually get bigger, just with some peaks and valleys, right? Like, that's what my weight has looked like this entire time. Every bulk is a little heavier than the last one, and every dieting phase ends heavier than the last one. So it's just this kind of consistent climb of a gradual trend of, lean size. But that's how I like it. So now I'm in the beginning of that bulking phase where eating food is not going to be a problem. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to have a problem getting food down probably for months, probably easily probably 3 months. It's not going to feel like a chore to eat. Plus, I'm kind of starting a little bit slower too, because I'm not just going to, scarf down 5,000 calories a day off the rip, because then I'm just going to get super soft, super quick, and undo my whole diet in just a few weeks' time, So same thing with this last prep, how I gradually reduced my calories over the course of the, I don't know how many weeks the phase went on for. Same thing in reverse for this bulk. I'm going to ease up. And then the scale should reflect a pretty steady upward trend. Not to mention the actual just like quantitative values of the lifts. Like last leg day was a 3-plate set of Smith machine squats for 10. Now I probably could have done a few more. It wasn't like insane wild failure, but that was a heavy set of 10. And for me, 3 plates on Smith should not feel that heavy. Or, I mean, I guess right now it just does. But, stronger off-season Sam, that's a warm-up. That's just easing into it. That's 3 plates where I kind of start to feel it just a touch. So over these next few weeks, as I get larger, the strength will also kind of, move up with a pretty strong correlation. So I like lifting heavy. I want to have some real heavy sets. Of course, I feel cool putting 5 plates onto a bar for a real set of squats. But that's not exactly the point. It's more so that I want to give myself new stimulus every workout. So you can just do that by obviously bringing it, doing some added intensifiers and, things like that. But as much as we can say, okay, you should make the weight heavy by the way you do the sets. Like grab the 30s and really hold and squeeze it, which I like. I do that. Or light squeezing leg extensions, light hamstring curls where you really hold it for like 2 seconds and have a long negative. Like, those are in the mix, But I still, you can't really argue with the fact that you can also make the weight heavier by making the weight heavier, So I think it's good to kind of have all of those different sides of the spectrum involved in your training. For every set of light squeezing, really deep stretch, cable flies that I might do, where I'm going to hold it for like 2 seconds, and I mean each rep is probably taking like 5 seconds each. Well, that's going to kind of be balanced with a really wild set of incline dumbbell or incline Smith or just regular hammer strength press. Because I mean, you've basically got, this will be the last thing I say before we get started. I'm kind of on a little bit of a ramble now, but you've got 2 sides of the spectrum of a regular set. Right, let's not include supersets or drop sets or anything. Just in terms of a regular straight set to failure, or at least, close to it. You've got light squeezing. You're going to really hold and burn it. So that might be, what might that be? Well, I guess that could just be a light dumbbell curl where you're really holding it for like a few seconds and then having a slow negative. But then you can also have a set on the opposite side where you're curling basically as much as you can curl within reason. I'm not saying like a nasty set with like the 90s. I'm saying like a legit set of, 60s or 50s, depending on what your strength is. You're not swinging too much, and you're really working your bicep by putting a ton of just straight mechanical tension through it. All right? I mean, it's just a good balance. It's the yin and yang. So I don't think the answer is one or the other. I think it's somewhere in between, where it's both in unison. So that's my take. I think that's a pretty good approximation of my take in terms of what your lift should look like. So if all your chest days have been just purely pressing or just purely light squeezing stuff, right, sprinkle it in, change it up a touch. I want to make sure every lift that I'm doing is a little different than the last one, or sometimes very different. I'll throw in I'll come up with some weird shit I haven't done before and see if I like it. But yeah, nothing else to say there. Buys first. Going for buys first today, finish with tries, and then we'll find some badass lighting. I don't think this workout's going to take more than 45, definitely not more than an hour. Dieting, the lifts are a little quicker because my rest periods are shorter because the sets aren't so intense, so it takes less time to recover between them. But, it's easier to grab the 30s for another set of 15, and at least time-wise, than it is to grab the 60s for another set of like 12 or something. So my rest periods do increase in the off season, especially for legs. I mean, in between sets of leg press, that's definitely got to be my longest rest period. But between sets of lateral raises, not so much. It might range from like 45 seconds to, with legs, quads especially, heavy stuff, even 3 minutes or so. Just enough time to get your heart rate back in order. But now I'm just yapping. Let's get started. All right. Let's not go super crazy, but I've warmed up 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Let's hit the 60s for a heavy one to start. Any more than the 60s to be maybe a little wild. One more of those. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's move on to a lighter preacher. Yeah, that hammer curl like finisher, that was good. Nothing like a set of preachers while listening to a Battle Beast TikTok edit. See? I can go a little heavier. What am I doing? Not that much heavier, but just one notch. There we go. Ooh. One more, at least. Let's take this handle and do a little something something. You'll see. Not the most conventional movement, but I think it's a little bit underhyped. So that's a pretty heavy set of curls, a more moderate set of preachers. So here's a decently heavy bicep bias pull down, but this is a very strong movement. Like this is like a chest press that gets heavier at the top, but it's lighter at the bottom in the stretch position, right? So when I'm up at the top here, I mean, I can keep doing a ton of like just partials. The tricky part is getting down to the bottom. So as just a little bit of a rundown, I'm not trying to flex my lats at all. The only thing I want actually causing any movement is this bicep flex here. So, I mean, just isolate this system. What's your bicep doing, right? This, that's every bicep movement ever, right? A curl is like this, preacher is like this. So this is the same thing, but now instead of having this upper part of your arm basically be like still, it's gonna move a touch. So I'm kind of aiming for this sort of feeling of like hands to shoulders. That's my kind of mental cue. I'm not thinking bar down, because that's making me think lats. That's making me think like row, chin up. I'm thinking hands to shoulders. And I'm trying to make sure my lats are completely out of play. I mean, they'll come into play a little bit just because it's tricky, but I'm trying to make sure that the only thing really getting worked is my biceps. And the straps are just to keep my forearms out of it. Okay. Ooh. One more of those. Okay. All right. Let's do one more light finisher, and then we can move on to tries. So I'm stealing this movement from Tristan Lee, and it's sort of just this, well, I don't know, it's kind of tricky to explain. So it's like you're holding the dumbbells in front of your thighs, and instead of a conventional curl that would be like up here in front of you, it's the same thing, like still just this bicep action, but now you're alternating this way. So if you're talking like brachialis, like that little nub of a muscle in between your tricep and your bicep, I do feel it a little extra here. Honestly, with biceps though, I don't think that you can like super directly target any particular part of it. But there are definitely movements where you feel different parts of your biceps. Like that bicep bias pull down that I just finished, I felt a lot of outer bicep out here, just because that's like, you know, I'm kind of twisting my hands out in this direction. Whereas, you know, when I'm doing those dumbbell curls, I might feel a little more like deeper bicep down here. But for the most part, as long as you do a couple different curls, I'm sure you'll hit everything. But yeah, 35s will be cool here, and I'll just really pump out as many as I can. I'm squeezing them, of course, but I'm not going to hold it for like 10 seconds or anything. All right. Okay. All right, let's start some tries now. Biceps come freaking complete. So biceps started a bit more brutish into light squeezing. I think tries, I'm going to do the opposite. Or at least I'm going to start with a lighter squeezing set and really burn and hold it at the bottom. Because if I try to do super heavy pushdowns right now, not only the fact that like I haven't done a bunch of heavy pushdowns for months, but also I'm not warm. It's just going to hurt my freaking elbows. So let's start with single arm alternating. Actually, no, single arm, just straight set to failure with a good 1 second freaking squeeze. Like I want to feel like my arm is going to hyperextend from how hard I'm flexing at the bottom. Then we'll just go from there. Let's do the 100. Ooh. 2 more of those. Ooh. All right, I'll do some assisted reps for the next one, then we can move on. Two. Yeah. Ooh. All right. Let's pick a new movement. This will be a little bit more of just a straight up heavy set to failure. So this is a pullover, but on any pullover machine, you can kind of sleaze it into a push down by getting on the front side instead of sitting like normal. You know, your results may vary, but on this pullover specifically, it's solid. Okay. One more of these. Two. Ta. Two. Okay. Ooh, okay. Two might have been too much. Holy shit. Let's do something on the cables a little lighter. Arms are almost freaking cooked, that's for sure. I think a light rope set is more than in order. A little heavier than that. Let's see, is 150 feasible? Not even a little bit. Let's do 100. Let's go back to 100. So this is really squeezing, holding. Like those push downs just took something out of me, tricep wise at least. All right, I know what I want to finish with. Then we can see our arms are looking fully pumped. And this is a good one too. Let's finish tries off with just a straight set of an easy bar pushdown. Not too heavy. I mean, this is only 190. That's technically lighter than those single arm pushdowns I was doing earlier because I was doing 100 in one hand. So I'm not going to push any further than this. I'd say 25-ish reps. There will be just a little extra blood on my triceps after this. Yeah. Okay. All right. A little short of 25, but let's see how we're looking. Arms freaking complete. All right, we're at 10% battery, but I don't think that that's going to interfere with the pose down. I'm not, it takes longer than a couple minutes to kill 10 freaking percent. But yeah, let's see how we're looking. So, oh boy. If I really want my arms essentially as pumped as possible, that's where I'm probably going to do an alternating day where it's like a superset back and forth between push down, curl, push down, curl. But even though I think my biceps are a little bit less than fully pumped because I just did a whole tricep workout afterward, they still got something going on in there. And actually, like, even just looking at myself now with my triceps, not flexing, like this is completely relaxed, I feel like they've got just a bit more bulbousness to them than I'm used to, which is, I guess, to be expected because I've been relatively flat for like the last half a year. You know, that's not what I stand for. But how about we start arms from the back and see how they're looking. Christmas tree still visible. I'm going to try to keep some grain for a bit longer this bulk. You know, I'm not just going to Wendy's myself into 20% body fat. I don't know if I've ever been 20, but still, we're going to stay a little leaner this time. But let's see how we're looking. Oh, man. That's what I want to see. So when I'm talking about the benefits of tricep development, obviously bigger arms, but in even just like a little bit of a standing pose like this, I'm kind of doing a little lat spread here. As round as my torso is from my shoulders, honestly, I think the most broad part of this little stance is the fact that my tricep is like, extending upward over the outside of my sort of silhouette. So that's what I really want to see. The craziest example, obviously Ronnie Coleman, but that old video of Lee Priest where he's like training outside, he's got the Superman necklace on, and he's not even doing like a vacuum, he just hits like a lat spread like this. Every time I do a lat spread with an arm pump, I feel a little Lee Priest-esque in that sense. Now, it's not the same, of course, but, let a lifter dream. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not rapidly gaining too much body fat. And I definitely, I'm doing at least what I think it takes to not... Weird little conversational pause there, but to not put on too much body fat, because I got cardio when I get home. I got a little bit of cardio. 30 minutes, break a sweat, heart rate around that mid 130s. I'm not sprinting. I'm not doing marathons or, HIIT training or burpees. But even just 30 minutes, man. 30 minutes, low intensity, steady state, near daily, I would recommend. You'll reap the benefits. But before I leave, I'm going to hit some calves. I want to thicken up my calves this off season more than already. And they're not too, my calf game is solid. Like, sort of, can you even see that? Yeah, kind of. I mean, there's nothing, I don't look at my calves and think, crap, I got no calves. But I do want them to thicken up. Okay, holy shit. Let's turn this into a leg pose down. Where the hell did all these freaking veins come from? What? Yeah, this is cool. Oh yeah, nice. So my legs are still cooked from, really mainly just from those 3-plate Smith machine squats. So I may end up taking a rest day tomorrow just because I want to hit my legs once they've actually recovered. There's not really a point, I think, in hitting them if they're not, at least semi-fresh. Because then what are you doing? You're just wearing them down even further before they've had a chance to get back to a fighting state. But yeah, so tomorrow will either be a rest day, a leg day, if my legs are fresh, or it'll be maybe just a straight up accessory day. Forearms, shoulders, we'll have to see. I did not weigh myself this morning because I forgot, but I think I'm a little heavier than yesterday. But I feel leaner than yesterday because I'm not so bloated with water. So, I'm in a good state, but I'll see you in the freaking car. All right. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just happy. I'm happy to have a fully pumped arm day. I'm happy to have sat and done like 8 sets of semi-heavy calf raises on the leg press to the point where, even getting out of the car once I get home, the fact that right now when you're in the car, your feet are kind of in a like a flexed position. When I stand up and like stretch my calves out, they're gonna burn because I haven't really hit them that hard for a little while. But yeah, things are looking up. Things are looking up in terms of this off season. So I don't think there's no point titling it yet because I'm still getting up to my regular groove. I think we'll really say day 1 of this off season will count once I'm a little closer to what's the word? I don't want to say firing on all cylinders because I said that earlier. But once I'm kind of closer to getting to full swing of things, I'll have to see how my leg strength feels tomorrow or potentially the next day, depending on if a rest day ends up being necessary. But yeah, we'll see. So I'd say probably another 2 weeks or so of this just sort of reintroduction of carb setup, and then it'll really count as, kind of off-season day one. I'll come up with some kind of title, but I don't know. I don't know if I can think of anything funny for this one. It's been like spring bulk, winter bulk. So first I was kind of starting with the seasons, and then we get into like the prep and how many days after the show and things along those lines. I'm not going to call it bigger by the day. That's just cheating. There's only one bigger by the day series, so that'd be a little too on the nose. I'll come up with something. Cutzilla was kind of stupid, but it was sort of funny at the same time. But yeah, we'll get a little off-season grocery haul going in the next couple of days, because I got to restock the freaking kitchen. I've got enough now where I'm still good. Like, I've got really probably 2 pounds of ground beef left out of the 4 pounds that I cooked, which is probably the best method of prepping any kind of ground beef. Just fill a salad bowl. Like, I'm talking, get a full-on soup pot, 4, 5, 6, however many pounds of ground beef you can handle cooking. Give it a stir, wait till it's all kind of, properly browned. Strain off as much of the fat as possible. Or you can kind of, there's a few ways you could do it. You can kind of flip the whole thing upside down with the lid on and then strain the fat into like a bowl or something. That's a very risky method, because what if you drop literally all of the ground beef you just cooked like into the sink or something? So that's one method. Really, what I think would be easier is having a straining kind of spatula or tongs, where you can kind of take a scoop, and then just from squeezing the tongs, it would squish out all the fat and kind of just spare whatever from each portion of ground beef that you're taking out, and then putting it into a bowl. Just however. And then by having, just a freaking abundance of cooked ground beef in your fridge, well, that's only one step away from consumption. All you got to do is put it into a bowl. I've gone through periods of time where I ended up cooking ground beef as I'm going to eat it. So I would cook a pound at a time or a half pound at a time, and then go through that process. But then every meal, you're going to sit and try to cook half a pound of ground beef, and just not waste, but spend 15 minutes before you actually get to eat your meal. Right? That sucks. So by having a base protein ready in the fridge, or at least readily available in the fridge, it's going to make, just coming up with meals way easier. So a little more important in a dieting phase, because if you walk into the kitchen and you're hungry, well, the first thing you want to do is just scan for the quickest thing you can eat. And, let's say you're about to cook some ground beef, have just like a ground beef and rice kind of meal, but you're freaking hungry. What are the odds that you might grab a couple saltines? What are the odds that you might grab some club crackers out of the pantry as a little bit of an appetizer, because you're hungry and it's going to be a few minutes before this meal's done. All right? So same thing with cardio. If you get a cardio bike in your house or in the basement or the garage, it only takes 1 second to get onto it and start. So the same logic applies with your meals. If you have some stuff already prepped and cooked, you don't have to worry about it. All you got to do is jump into the fridge, scoop out, your necessary amount, have a food scale ready. All right, 6 ounces of ground beef, 200 grams of something or other, rice, oatmeal, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and then boom, you're ready to slam a meal. So I haven't gotten into meal prep, because there's a ton of meal prep companies out there, and I've had a few. Really, that's definitely the most convenient. So I don't know. I've had a few of those. Actually, in terms of consistency, that might be something to look into. Start slamming some kind of packaged meals where you get a shipment with like dry ice or whatever every week or so, and then you get a few meals prepped. I don't think it's necessary to go to a meal prep company for every meal, but having a few in the fridge is kind of nice. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll try a few and see if that's something I want to get into. But yeah, plan now is go home, edit this thing together, and then jump on the cardio bike. So I'm kind of torn. I don't know if I want to. From these last 6 months, all my workouts have been in the morning, or at least early in the day. Like, the workout is the first session. So, I'd wake up, get, 50 grams of carbs worth of oatmeal, maybe a little bit of proteins, and then straight to the gym for some chest, which is, today was arms, but that's what I did today. All I had was 3 packs of instant oats just to have something in my stomach. So when I come in and get a lift, I'm not just burning, running on fumes. And then I'm doing my cardio directly afterward. But on all my bulks previously, I've done my 30 minutes of cardio right when I wake up, and then worked out more like in the evening after I've had a few meals. I think I'm overthinking it. At the end of the day, if you start trying to really freak about every specific little detail, you lose track of the forest if you're only focused on the tree. So I think I've come to the conclusion that when it comes to just cardio timing with your workouts, you can definitely optimize it for your schedule, but as long as it gets done sometime during the day and you're at least slightly fed and you're well hydrated, I think you're cool. I wouldn't recommend doing 30 minutes on the Stairmaster right after a leg day, just because your legs are going to be destroyed, and the Stairmaster is really hard on your quads and glutes and everything. But if you're doing low intensity, steady state, walk on the treadmill on an incline, do the seated bike, whichever, maybe do the elliptical if that's your cardio machine of choice. Then if you've got to do that post-workout, like let's say you just did I just did arms today, I don't have a problem doing 30 minutes of cardio afterward. I'm going to go home and eat a meal first, so maybe that's all I'm going to change, is have at least a little something post-workout before the cardio. But if you're eating in a surplus, and even if you're eating in maintenance, you're really not going to overdo it. There's an extreme case where the too much cardio argument is legit, and that's when you're doing freaking half marathons on the regular, right? If you're actually doing that much cardio hours upon hours per day, that's where you might run into some kind of issue. 30 minutes on the bike, 30 minutes on the treadmill, 3 miles an hour, 5% incline, that's not going to eat into your muscle. Not one freaking bit. That's just, I don't think straw man is the right argumentative term, but that's just a scapegoat for people to skip it. But if you want the benefits of the cardio, aka better endurance for your workouts, maintaining a lower level of body fat on average just because you're a more active guy, not to mention just general health benefits, everyone should be doing some cardio, then you know the value, right? You know the value. If you're that kind of guy to slack, if you're that kind of guy to say, you know what, I'm not doing this cardio, I'm going home, I just had a badass chest day and I'm sweaty, I'm out of here. Well, you know what? You do you, right? That's your life. It's your world, and we're living in it. You're not doing your cardio, and nobody's gonna stop you. So just think about it. I would love to know that statistic. YouTube is gonna tell me geographical location of different viewership and the retention and all sorts of different numbers, but YouTube analytics does not tell me who's really doing their cardio. I'll post an Instagram poll on my story every so often. Did you do your cardio today? And it's usually 30% of people say they did. I freaking doubt it. I freaking doubt it. And it's why even lie? I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But it's very rare that I go into the gym and I say, crap, I can't get on a treadmill. Crap, I can't get on a seated bike. Now, there's usually a ton more cardio pieces, but still, it's more often, shit, I can't get on a chest machine, or I can't get a cable, things along those lines. But yeah, it feels good to get some carbs in my system, that is for sure. And that was a badass freaking pump. Yeah, that's awesome. So, reaping the rewards. You diet for long enough, things swing back around full circle. You get to grub, be relatively full, and still decently lean from the diet. We're still in the honeymoon phase of this off season, but it really doesn't end. Sure, I might get a little softer, but I keep thinking back to the same workout. The last time I was at Gold's Gym, Venice, I don't remember what I was down there for. It was some kind of something. But we stopped at Gold's and hit some chest. And I might actually go back and rewatch it just to see what I looked like back then. But that was pretty hefty, middle of last year, and I was doing like 365 for I don't even know how many on incline bench. It was like 12 or something, So it's not that's the point. Like, I'm not just lifting weights to move them purely for its own sake. But I'd be lying if I don't feel cool unracking a ton of weight for a hefty working set and have it not be like pure ego lifter-ish. Like I've done I've done some heavy sets before where it was really more weight than I should mess with, but now I think I've got a good gauge where I can sort of tell myself, ooh, maybe you shouldn't try to squat that much today. Maybe you should save that for next time. Maybe you should just ease into it. Maybe you shouldn't try to curl the 90s or things like that. But it's a fine line because I want to push it. I don't want to slack off and go lighter than necessary. I still want to really bring it, but if you go too far past that little barrier, then you're really asking for trouble. And the last thing I want is to really tear anything or have a pull or forbid anything like come off the bone tendon wise. That's the last thing that I want. So I'm going to balance those two desires: the desire to be a total freak and move some weight around, but probably the stronger desire to not self-destruct my pecs or my lats or my quads or things like that. So those are the two forces at play in my mind. It's like the two wolves scenario. I forget what the two wolves analogy is, but basically like that. Like I got two voices in my ear. One's telling me go bananas crazy, and the other one's saying, hey man, watch yourself. And usually I listen to that one. The more that I've kind of gradually had random tweaks and pulls and things, that's the voice I'm listening to, the voice of reason. But you still got to listen to that, hype up, get yourself amped voice, because you got to have some freaking energy. So it's a good play between the two. That's what I think. But if you're coming up on the end of your semester, whether it's high school, whether it's college, or if you're all done, you don't have to worry about it anymore, I guess you're good. But yeah, keep locking in, that's for sure. One of my buddies showed me, or one of my friends showed me one of his friends. He tracked all of the time that he spent working out, studying for the MCAT, and then a few other things that he was working on too, because he's he's going to med school, and it was insane how consistent he was with not only with the tracking itself, because that's cool, but also the outside of the gym, just regular routine that he was keeping with, like the amount of hours he was clocking, studying, going through practice exams, things like that. So I guess you got to lock into the gym, but you also got to be an academic weapon as well if you're almost done there. And then summertime. So yeah, things are looking up, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm going to get home, play with the cats, get this video together, get some food in my system. A post-workout nap is not off the table, or at least a post-cardio nap is not off the table. So I guess we'll just have to see how we feel later. But yeah, all done. I will see you tomorrow.